Hey everybody, welcome to a new game series. This is Hermitage Strange Case Files. It's Halloween night and I wanted to check out a spooky game. I've mentioned before though, I'm not great at spooky games, so I saw this a while ago. I think it was released a week ago. It is a Lovecraftian mystery horror game. And I believe it's a visual novel game, so I'm picturing something like Moon High School, which I ran on the channel a few months ago. I thought this was a perfect fit for what I like to have on the channel. This was developed by Arrowitz and published by, I think it's pronounced Giku Games, but I could be wrong. And man, right off the bat, like the smooth jazz music, it's, setting up to be in the right mood. I believe we're going to be some sort of like detective, and this type of music is right up this alley. Without further ado, let's get into the game. Click left mouse button or spacebar to continue. So back menu is escape, skip is spacebar. We're not going to do any skipping. Or we can push enter or next. Okay. This game is purely fictional. All events, characters and items depicted in this game are fictional. Any similarity, any person or actual event is coincidental and unintended. Nice to know. Interesting start. She keeps her eyes closed. She can't forget what happened because something still lingers in the air. Anger. Maybe. No, it's not just anger. Maybe it's regret. A jumble of thoughts sweeps through her mind, and the icy air is burning her cheeks. Flying is more difficult than she thought. Looks like her soul didn't sprout wings after all. Somehow, it's like she's still here. She feels relieved at the thought, and thus the game begins. The world goes on, and the clock is ticking steadily. The world doesn't owe anything to anyone, so it won't listen to anyone's requests. Even praying won't turn bad things into good things all of a sudden. Therefore, those who expect a lot from this world should overthink their attitude. There is no joy, no sorrow, just emptiness. The world feels heavy on her shoulders. Chapter 1, I didn't see the chapter name. Day in something. Mentor. Long story short, we'll focus on all our energy on the preparations for this project. Although it will take place next semester, every day we slack off now means that the other art clubs have one more day to catch up to us. Keep in mind that our elite art club has a reputation to uphold. It is essential that we are victorious in the future. I know it's unusual for me to push you guys so hard, and I realize some of you might be uncomfortable with that. Think it over carefully, for your own good. I don't want any more incidents this year. That's all. Any questions? What about the materials? If we're going to do oil paintings, the paint will be very expensive. That won't be a problem. Ah, your new classmate doesn't have any materials yet, does she? I'll prepare some for her. I saw her with some art supplies today. That's right. Let her use her own supplies. So there's no need to worry about it, is there? Guys. Well, you can figure out a suitable solution amongst yourselves. That's all for today. Goodbye. Oh, I love this, like, almost like cell shading art style, like the thick black lines on the art. This looks very cool. The girl has a problem. She suffers from nightmares, even during the day. Even when it comes to such a renowned, flashy school, the shadows are still everywhere, lingering. They are relentless. It took her a whole week to figure out where to hand in her own work. Nobody even considered offering her help. I mean, did she ask? Who knows? The teachers always seem to be in a hurry after class, avoiding contact with anyone. It is far from what she imagined. Something must be wrong with her. At least, that's what she always tells herself. That's why she came here in the first place. Her family moves around a lot and she could never depend on her friends. The only thing she can depend on is her hobby. She doesn't like to talk, and as long as she doesn't have to, everything's fine. At least this school has an art club. If she doesn't need words to go about her hobbies, presumably she won't need words to make friends. That's what she thought. However, her expectations weren't met. Still working on that piece? Just give up already. The girl's smile is mean, a prideful grimace to draw attention and show off to everyone around her. The painting is a little different from what she was imagining, but she's dealing with the past bit by bit after all. The paint is still wet, but once it's dry, she will pay more attention to the details. Come on, just leave it. You can't participate in the next event because you haven't done your part. Understand? It doesn't really matter anyway. The work should be more precise. You should have left room for another line right here. Oh, leave her alone. Anyway, she's going to fall flat on her face anyway. Thinking she can play in the big leagues? Those mean words cut deep like a knife, and sadly, it's a daily occurrence. I wish she'd be more self-aware and know where her place is. It's so annoying to have a newbie around. Come on, just let her sit here and rot, just like the mushroom. Ha 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 ha! Bye, remember what you're supposed to do. They switch off the lights as they leave, forgetting the fact that there's still someone in the room. I don't think they forgot. Since there's only one window, the lighting in the art studio isn't exactly optimal. She doesn't feel like doing anything about it right now. Obviously, the fact that they forgot that she was in the room wasn't an accident. Gradually, everyone leaves the building, and everything goes silent. Maybe mushrooms grow in silence, in isolation. She would prefer to be a mushroom right now. At least people aren't outright cruel to a mushroom. At most, they would casually crush it with one foot. That outcome doesn't seem so bad. One odd thought to cross her mind. In novels, students are confronted with events like this over and over again. The readers might laugh at the repetitiveness of the author's writing. However, not many people would continue laughing once events like that turn into a cruel reality for themselves. Only once did she manage to muster up the courage to speak out against the people ganging up on her, but it made no difference. She put up a wall around herself for her own protection, her very own glass prison, protecting her from the cruel outside world. The whole world is against her. At least that's how it feels. In a novel, there would be two potential scenarios for her: coming out of her shell and breaking the silence, or slowly but surely drowning in it. And she obviously doesn't have the right kind of personality for the former. The broom and the dustpan are gone. She isn't surprised at the prank, and just quietly closes the cabinet. The classroom is more cluttered than ever, and the crumpled up paper everywhere seems to be the trap that's been laid out for her today. She slowly picks up a piece of paper. Eventually they'll run out of ideas. Even if this young girl tries to deal with her emotions, the malice of the past doesn't look like it will disappear in the future. Even if she struggles to deal with her grief, the pain is relentless, taking up 24 hours of every day. Even so, she doesn't give up. Ah, these guys are really... Should I turn on the lights? The shadows disappear and the room grows warm again. I figured you'd still be in here. Let's go back together. The world goes on, and the clock keeps ticking. The world doesn't owe anything to anyone, so it won't listen to anyone's requests. Even praying won't turn bad things into good things all of a sudden. Therefore, those who expect a lot from the world should overthink their attitudes. Maybe that's why the moth is drawn to the flame. Okay. That one goes there. And this one. Okay, done. It doesn't really fit. Many people simply grab books, flip through them, and then put them back. Of course, they don't check where the book was originally. This means everything's in an organised mess, with different genres and classifications thrown into one big, messy pile. Making sure everything is put back in its original place is probably more difficult than just placing it in the first free space you see. Alright then, time for a break. There's no sense in asking too much of yourself. To be honest, I don't have a lot of confidence as a store manager, even though I've been doing this for the last 6 months. I had my doubts at first, but whatever. Gotta earn money somehow. The landlord's out for my blood. Hermitage isn't just an ordinary shop. If customers are only looking for something to satisfy their desire to read, most of them won't find what they're looking for here. The literature here, from the folklore of Japanese scholars in China to propaganda transcripts of new religious groups in Southeast Asia, has piled up into such a vast ocean of books that even the owner has lost his overview. There's a lot of really obscure reading material here, and the only reasons why people stay here must either be the familiar smell of old books, or that they're looking for some very specific research material. There's always an interesting conversation to be had though. But it doesn't seem like there are any new customers around today. After all, the storefront doesn't look that welcoming to strangers. The few regulars who come here are either very quiet or have chatted way too much over the past few weeks, to the point that they don't have anything interesting left to say. Skinny customer. The girl's hands rest on the edge of the bookshelf, and she's silently moving her lips while browsing through the books. Over the last few months, she's become a regular visitor. I like her. Quietness isn't a bad thing in itself, and she has always been polite and not at all annoying. What's more, she once bought Voyages of the Western Pacific in the shop, which instantly earned her some bonus points. I should try talking to her more often. I'm sure there's some good conversations to be had. I just need to finish my chores. Oh, hello. So we have the bookshelf. Is this the 16th of October? And it's a Monday. Thoughts, case files. Now isn't time for a break. Okay, let's go to the bookshelf then. I'm having trouble with something cleaning my desk. Always clears my mind. Thoughts? I'm looking for information. I can always check out the books case. Okay. There aren't any noteworthy books right now. This is tutorialization. If there's nothing else I sometimes go ahead and organize the shelves. There are still customers in the store, so I should do my job as a store manager first. A customer seems to have something to say. Okay, autosave in the top right. We'll look out for that. Let's have a conversation then. Only now do I notice how young she must be. Her uniform, consisting of a sailor suit and a long skirt, is quite well known in this city. If I remember correctly, this uniform is worn at a well-known private school. It's called Phoenix High School. I heard that they only accept female students, and that it's one of the highest rated schools. Quite a feat. Its name sounds appropriately strong. I mean, does Phoenix sound strong? Like, Phoenix are famous for dying and then being reborn. That feels like something with like a high turnover. I would say it's like a great name for a strong school. Like the Dragon High School. Now that's strong. Cyclops High School. Very strong. Phoenix. She wears big glasses that cover a huge part of her face and is clutching a book under one arm. She holds it very carefully. It almost looks like she's carrying a small animal that she's trying not to hurt. That's the one you want to buy today. Sorry, I'm just making sure. This time it's The Trail of the Missing Fish. Her reading interests are a little weird. She's been coming here more often lately, and has slowly become a regular. This store isn't really that well known, so she must have heard about it somewhere. I flipped through The Trail of the Missing Fish before. The book is by no means interesting to read. It's more like an academic documentary. Something about ancient rituals and making sacrifices to a sea god. I have my doubts about its authenticity. Sounds very Lovecraftian, fish stuff. The village itself has been abandoned for a long time, and its remains were almost entirely destroyed. The author cites a large number of folklore accounts to corroborate the details, but it's all mere speculation. An entire book full of ancient texts. While the content sure is interesting, the quality of the writing itself is lackluster. Why would a student be interested in the remains of a settlement whose name has been long forgotten? Sure, the shop sometimes gets a volume containing a rare piece of history that's significant, but this mysterious village, according to the author's nebulous sources, was a place where strange rituals were a common thing. It's actually quite scary to read. And that's not even the most troublesome thing. It's not that simple, I'm afraid. Huh? I can sense her confusion. May I ask why you want this book? Why? I'm just curious. I can't deny it. These things are very interesting to me, too. There's more to this world than we know. The girl seems somewhat confused. Her blank eyes wander around the room. Can I please have it? I really need it. It's just, there are certain rules and guidelines I must follow. I'm sure you understand. The way the girl responds is somewhat unusual. Even though it's a strange book, she shouldn't be this embarrassed. Maybe she's really introverted. I don't know if that reason could be such a simple one. But Yeah? Sure. It's okay. Or maybe... Everything alright? I don't need this book anymore. I'm sorry. I'll help you put it back. The girl takes the book from my hands and turns towards the bookcase. It's all very abrupt, and the way she moves is extremely clumsy. It's easy to see how nervous she is and she didn't think things through. Oh. Bookcase, I presume number 3? That's Freud. Freud? Freud. That's Freud. Man. Didn't do any psychology, but I do recognise the name. That's Freud, if I'm not mistaken. It's silent all of a sudden. She's just laying there on the ground, underneath a mountain of books. With severe concussion, probably. I can't even find the right words to describe this situation. All I can do is silently walk towards her, and the literally battlefield. Sorry. I'm so sorry. My curiosity from a few moments ago has been fully satisfied. Now she's acting like a woodpecker, keeping her head down and bowing repeatedly in apology. She looks like she's on the verge of tears. Come on, help me clean up. We need to get some sense of order back. If the actual owner saw this, I'd be kicked out in an instant. Of course. Really, I'm so sorry. The girl follows me and helps me pick up the books scattered all over the floor. Every time she picks up a book, she opens it and rifles through the pages carefully. After making sure the book pages aren't damaged, she carefully blows away the dust before handing the books back to me. Her hands are trembling, and she's obviously scared and nervous. Doing this in silence is only going to make the atmosphere even more awkward. Time to find something to talk about to lighten things up a little. So, your name's Cecile, right? Look, your student ID card. You must have dropped it when you fell. Ah, when did that happen? Relax. You're a regular here. I'm not angry because of the small accident, alright? Don't worry about it. Really. Let's get back to the topic. The book you want is a good one, sure. It's also very rare and valuable. I can't see why someone your age would need it so badly. I can't just sell such a precious book to someone so young. Someone who still shows a lack of control. You know what I mean? Honestly, no. Listen, I mean, honestly, now that I think about it, he doesn't have to sell the book. It's kind of odd to be in, like, a sales sort of, area. And to, be reluctant to sell something, especially if you're not the manager of the place. But you don't have to sell things, I guess. The emphasis being on can't sell. If you can convince me, I might consider lending it to you. I'll lend it to you, and you'll bring it back once you've finished it. But don't go telling people about it. I don't usually make exceptions. I don't want to have to lie to people and pass it off as a mistake should anyone find out I made an exception. This copy of The Trail of the Missing Fish is a folklore, and given that even this issue is at least 20 years old, I doubt the author was ever officially published during his time. As mentioned before, the book's content and writing style are rather obscure, and it takes a lot of time to fully grasp its meaning. You might be disappointed if you expect to find an exact piece of information that you're looking for, but online search engines have come a long way. Our ability to search for information and find it quickly has long exceeded everything we used to think was possible. Cecile could be looking for something very specific, something so peculiar that it may only be found in this particular book. Such a young girl, suddenly developing an interest in ancient religious practices for no apparent reason? What a strange world we live in. Cecile hesitates for a moment, maybe because she still feels guilty. Sir, would you believe me if I told you something? That really depends on what you're going to say. Just know that you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. But if there's anything you need to get off your chest, I'm happy to listen. I can fully understand why you wouldn't want to talk to your classmates, and some things need to be talked about, or they'll eat you up from the inside. Bullseye. Her pale fingers clench the book tightly. Recently, I've been having some very strange dreams. Oh? Most of them are horrifying, so I'm really scared. I dreamed of a gigantic fire rising from the sea, engulfing an entire island. Many small animals lived on that island, but they all disappeared in the blink of an eye, swallowed by the flames. There was no trace of them left after that. And in another dream, I saw men dressed in ancient armour. They were fighting. They held swords and spears and stood together in huge groups. A large squadron of cavalry rushed towards them from the hillside. There was blood everywhere. The men who weren't on horseback were shouting and screaming. I couldn't understand the strange dialect, but they were speaking Chinese. I also dreamed of a huge plaza surrounded by buildings. Foreigners wearing hexagonal star badges stood together in a dozen lines and were escorted to trucks by soldiers. There were mothers in tears holding on to their babies. The soldiers showed no emotions. They knocked the cowering women to the ground with their rifles and then took the screaming babies. Before I started having these nightmares, I'd only seen scenarios like that in a book, illustrations, or on TV. But I also saw many things that I'd never seen or heard about before. These aren't ordinary dreams, and I can't seem to forget about them. I remember them all vividly. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at describing how I feel. Did it all seem way too real? Cecile nods. They don't seem like normal dreams. Why would I have visions of such things when I don't even have that good of an imagination? I tried to write it all down. If there are realistic details that I couldn't actually know about, that would be all the proof I need. I see. So this time, you had a dream about traditional native festivals. You wrote down what they were doing in your dream, and now you're looking for information that might give you some clues. To be honest, old literature as specific as this is both hard to find and hard to understand. Even harder without having some prior knowledge about it. There was a group of natives dressed in rags, dancing around an 8-legged fish made of straw. They spilled yellow wine on the straw heap and smeared blood on the child's lips. They were chanting a strange song that I didn't understand. I had no idea what they were singing at first because I'm not very familiar with that Cantonese dialect. But things became much clearer when I found out about the book. Cecile concludes her train of thought with a slight sigh. Nearly all of the customers who come to Hermitage to buy books have a story. But to be honest, this situation is a little more complicated. The human brain has many different ways of painting pictures in our minds, dreaming being the most common one. However, for most dreams, there's a logical explanation. Once we drift into supernatural territory, that's when people get scared. But that's not the most pressing issue right now. I can't help but look back at her. Cecile's afraid of making eye contact, but she manages to raise her head to convey how sincere she is with her eyes. She isn't being completely sincere though. A half-truth is still a lie. I don't know if she realises that. I'm not angry. I can't blame her. In the face of uncertainty, she doesn't know who to trust and is extremely confused. Every situation is unique. For better or worse, I've accumulated some experience dealing with strange situations like this one. Going on like this will only lead to us running in circles. I need to find the right words. Something a girl in her position can relate to. Now's the time to choose. Oh, this is interesting. We can be straightforward. What else are you hiding? Beat around the bush? I think there might be something else. Bluff? Actually, the truth is, or intimidate. Lying is not a good habit, you know. I think we'd be straightforward with her. What else are you hiding? I put down my pen, take a deep breath, and firmly look into Cecile's eyes. I think you haven't told me everything you know. The girl's eyes widen as I call her out. Looking for information because you had some strange dreams? A nice idea, but only someone who went through the trouble of making up a story would explain it like that. But I didn't. Humans rely on subjective motivation. If a thing has no value, no one will grant it much attention, let alone devote so much effort into studying it. I can tell you're a smart girl, but believe me, interest is a bad excuse. You can stick with that approach, but it's not going to work. I approach Cecile and look into her eyes. There's a lot of history hidden away here. Fate brought you to Hermitage. It's a special place. I hope you understand that. Cecile seems to be holding her breath. The girl holds tightly onto the book, her fingers caressing the corners. It's a sign of how many thoughts are going through her head right now. Time feels as if it's moving slower. I don't know how long we were standing there, but after a while, Cecile's eyes finally drift away from mine. Sir, you really aren't an ordinary person. Thanks. I won't shy away from a compliment if I get one, that's for sure. Cecile ignores my playful remark. She carefully puts the book back on the shelf, then turns to me with a serious expression on her face. It wasn't my original plan, but sooner or later, I probably would have come here to ask you for advice anyway. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble. I'm really embarrassed. Seems like you really don't know anything. All I can do is scratch my head. Playing dumb doesn't seem to be working very well. I want to believe there are still people willing to help others out there, so it's nice to see they still exist. You're an interesting person, surrounded by so much knowledge from all kinds of different sources. Many people would never believe me if I told them what I told you. I can take a rough guess at your situation. You can tell me your story. I'd like to hear the truth. The corners of Cecile's mouth turn upwards into a slightly bitter smile. It's a harsh truth, though. I really didn't lie. Those images are still in my head. But it's just like you said. There are other reasons why I'm paying such close attention to them. Cecile's tone of voice changes as she looks at me, but her eyes aren't focusing on me. I saw my best friend in my dreams. She's like a sister to me. Huh? She was lying on the ground, twitching. Her face was pale as snow. The ground beneath her head was covered in red. Blood was still pouring out of her. I couldn't see her eyes. Her right hand was completely mauled. She was trying to move. There was blood, so much blood, and I... The girl is getting more and more immersed in her vivid memories. She stares at me with blank eyes. I can see a figure reflecting in her eyes, but it's not me. Cecile covers her face with one hand. She looks panicked. She uses the other hand to point at the ground, as if something were lying there. She kept trying to lift her head, but her neck was twisted too badly. She didn't react at all. I held her hand. Cecile enters in a kind of trance as she becomes fully immersed in the memory. Her facial expression changes to be one of utmost dread. Her mouth starts moving, strangely on its own. Words spill out of her mouth. She can't control it. She's staring. The stare. The eyes. Wait, eyes? Didn't she say she couldn't see them at first? Blood. Her neck. Those eyes. The eyes. Eyes. Looking at me. They're looking at me. Staring at me. Looking at me. Gazing at me. Those eyes. I clap my hands loudly in front of her face. She sits there with her arms wrapped around herself, shaking, frightened. What should I do? I gently put my hand on her shoulder. Calm down, calm down. So basically, this vision made you worry. Worry about your friend's well-being. Cecile nods. I can't bear the thought of her like that. It's so horrible. I'm really scared. The more I remember, the more I... Cecile leans against the edge of the bookshelf, her arms around her knees. So you decided to look for information on visions and hallucinations. You're trying to gain further knowledge about them, trying to figure out how much of what you're experiencing is connected to reality. No response this time, but the answer's clear. This is starting to get troublesome. Will you help me? Cecile looks up, a worried expression on her face. Her eyes are slightly red and swollen from holding back her tears. She looks so troubled. I can't leave her alone with this burden. So your interest was in fact genuine. That book. I thought maybe Okay, take it easy. I won't leave you on your own. However, if you really want me to help you, I need more information, some more details to work with. Who exactly is this friend who's like a sister to you? What's your relationship with her? Can you pinpoint where and when this vision takes place? More importantly, what exactly are these hallucinations? I know the situation is serious, but I still need to grasp the basic concept of it all, or I won't be able to help you. You're right. I'll tell you. Actually, I often get bullied at school. I don't have any friends there, and they often pick on me in groups. They all think I don't deserve to be going to the same school as them. They want to force me to leave. They don't talk to me, they steal my books, or pour water in my desk drawer. They always try to make me angry, or trip me whenever I walk by. The only person who ever stood up for me and told them to stop was her. Her name is... Eloise? 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 I've never seen this name before. Is it Elise? With an O? Hang on. Eloise. It must... How to pronounce... It's only going to take me a second. Okay. Is it Eloise? Google, you're not being very helpful to me right now. Apologies. Eloise. Eloise. Okay. Sorry, I feel like this was an important name to get. Her name is Eloise. She's the president of the school's art club. Without her, I probably wouldn't have given up. I would have given up already. When did you two meet? Around the middle of September this year. Interesting. From what you've told me so far, I would have thought you'd known each other for years. I wish that were the case, but I only transferred to Phoenix High School this semester. I had high hopes that the people there would be nicer, that there'd be a sense of community, but it's even worse than it was before. She sighs and looks as if she's holding back a frustrated laugh. It sounds tough. Is this art club somehow related to what you've been dreaming of? The flaw in my vision is very much like the one in the art club building, and Eloise often gets into arguments with others because of me. Are there many conflicts within the art club? The situation between her and the others is very tense, even though she's the student representative. Don't the teachers have anything to say about all that? I mean, things like that could reflect negatively on them too. Truth be told, the teachers are more worried about the art competition. The preparations for that have their full attention. The what now? It's an art competition called the Cecile Cup. It's prestigious and the level of talent is very high. It's serious business. Sorry if it's not you, Say. I'm just going to go with this now because I spent so long looking up Eloise. I don't really know too much about those kinds of things. What can you win? Prize money? No, nothing like that. Is it fame? Honestly, for me it's not even that big a deal. But I've only been around a few months. Many of the others multiple years. Their pride is on the line when it comes to facing off against students from other schools. So it's about honour. Every February, the Cecile Cup is the only thing anybody talks about at Phoenix High. We always score well in the competition. Sounds very persistent if you ask me. They work so hard to prepare it that they are all stressed out. The atmosphere becomes unbearable and the art club turns into an emotional powder keg. So it's a regular occurrence. Just like me, Eloise doesn't have much of a presence outside the art club. Considering her calm personality, it's hard to imagine her taking the initiative and start a fight with anyone else. That makes your visions even more strange. There's no plausible explanation for them. I would like to just write them off as simple nightmares. I really would, but I'm convinced that there's more to it. Yes, I understand that now. It really makes me wonder. Like I said before, I see a lot of things in these dreams, although I don't think see is the right word to describe it. I can see, hear, and touch everything. It's as if I don't even exist, and I'm actually part of it all. That doesn't really add up to what you said before. Could you explain it again? How do you mean that? I'm not very good at explaining it. Don't worry. Just tell me about how you felt when it first happened. What was the first thing that went through your mind? Cecile thinks it over and opens her mouth to say something, but then shuts it again. She stays silent for almost a whole minute. Okay, I won't do it for a whole minute. Well, I think I was flying. Flying? So it feels like you're flying through the air? No, it feels like flying, but I don't have any sense of self. I can observe everything from above, but my perspective certainly isn't from heaven. The only reason I say it that way is so I can describe it somehow. So it's like an out-of-body experience, I guess. Oh, last time I saw the city's famous riverside viewing platform. A group of panicked people came running from the north, right towards the people on the viewing platform. Luckily, Security guards were nearby to handle the situation and prevent mass panic. The people were shaken up and looked like they'd seen a ghost. They looked really frightened. All the same, they were such a small group that they were lost in the gigantic crowd of people. Hardly anyone noticed the uproar, and on the other side of the viewing platform, everyone simply carried on as usual. It's really scary how you can feel isolated and unsafe even when you're out in public and surrounded by so many people. Afterwards, I went to take a look at the place on my own. The surrounding streets and buildings were all familiar to me. They were just like in that dream. Even the street signs were the same. It's hard to imagine that without having seen it for yourself. I've seen bizarre scenarios play out in my mind before, but until the visions of my friends, I never thought about actively researching what I'd seen. I often lost track of time when I had those visions. I have no sense of self. No, Cecile. It's just one big blur of everything. Cecile describes the situation as if it were a good thing. I'm surprised she isn't smiling, but with how happy she sounds. However, as soon as my focus shifts, I quickly lose that state of mind. The same as with a real dream? By the time I start to question whether or not I am myself, I'm already in more of a conscious state than it, and it's only a matter of time before I return to reality. Well, at least you return to your senses at some point. A dream that can even put a fact in question is more than bizarre. Even if I wanted the help from someone, I'd have a hard time explaining it to them. I really appreciate you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm very grateful. She bows her head and already sounds less tense. Talking is really important. I've never been very sociable. Too awkward, I guess. But I see where you're coming from. Anyway, I just want to understand what I see. After all, if my friend is really in danger, I need to find a way to help her. Do you think I'm naive for wanting to find out whether my dreams are real or not? Of course not. In fact, you being so calm right now is remarkable. Let's take a small break. You want another cup of coffee? Cecile leaves Hermitage before the sun goes down. I honestly thought there was a coffee shop inside the bookstore. The bookstore. I didn't expect, he was asking me to leave and go get a coffee. The hand she was holding with the hot coffee was ice cold, which I find difficult to comprehend. After Cecile's departure, the bookstore falls back into its usual silence. Okay, that's kind of weird. She had icy cold hands while handling hot coffee. You sure it wasn't a cold brewed coffee, by the way, store owner? Store manager, I think it was. Only the books that are askew on the shelves show any indication that something happened here. Though, to be honest, it's probably more organised than before. Still, there's a lot of work to be done. I should analyse the information I have so far. It completely depends on how much Cecile is willing to tell me. We agreed to discuss it further tomorrow, but if she chooses to give up, there's nothing more I can do. Instead of worrying about that right now, I should focus my mind on the matter at hand. Stay calm and collected, and take plenty of notes. That's what experience has taught me over the years. Even strange events that cannot be explained through common sense often follow some kind of logic. As long as there is sufficient information, I can draw conclusions. As more conclusions are drawn, an analysis of the events can be constructed. It's something I like to call the principle of reasoning. The things I can see look so real, I can nearly reach out and touch them. Normally, my imagination isn't as vivid. That's why I started memorizing the things I saw. How else would I be able to prove the real... Sorry, I fluffed that line. How else would I ever be able to prove that they're real events? Presumed. Reasoning. I wrote down a question. Realistic dreams. Although her idea sounds somewhat naive, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. The problem is how to prove it. Even if Cecile finds matches between the dreams and reality, there's no actual solid proof. People often get a sense of déjà vu, and this experience, known as a sense of being present, has its own plausible explanation in science. In terms of emotional instability, the frequency of deja vu experiences is increased. That might not be all, and it's too simple an explanation, but when under stress, it's easy for the brain to mess up one of the delicate processes. The viewing platform Cecile mentioned is a pretty well known sightseeing spot, so even if the architecture there gives her a sense of familiarity because of her vision, that's still no real verification. Past memories can often interfere subconsciously with the conclusion. She might have seen the place somewhere before. To answer this question, I can't rely solely on Cecile's one-sided information. The assumption that she didn't have any relevant knowledge beforehand could only be confirmed by a third party. I should take notes on what else she said she saw. The ancient battlefield, gatherings at the square. These things are bizarre enough, and there seems to be no explanation for them. That big fire she mentioned worries me as well. Considering the difficulty of the investigation, I only have a limited number of options left. Those things happened at Phoenix High School. Riots at the Riverside viewing platform. That's all the information I can confirm so far. It's puzzling either way, but at least I can try. There are more down-to-earth approaches to understanding what's happening in this city. If possible, I want to avoid involving any innocent bystanders. When I was conducting research on folklore in the remote countryside, I heard a lot about supernatural dreams. But there's a world of difference between an innocent high school student and witches. It's obvious that Cecile has already convinced herself of an answer to all of this, but trying to actually prove it is something much more difficult altogether. The sky outside has already turned completely dark, and I didn't even notice. The lighting inside Hermitage isn't optimal, but it's better than nothing. I turn off the dim lights on the ground floor, which hold more symbolic than actual value, lock the shop door, and make my way to the apartment. Okay. Hopefully that's... Oh, there is a save in the menu. Okay. I think we're going to call it there for this episode. Man, I was engrossed in that game at the moment. Time has really flown by. So, Cecile is having hallucinations, very real ones, and she wants to protect her friend, Eloise. I'm even going to note this down. Eloise. There you go. Now I won't get it wrong again. Eloise. So yeah, she wants to protect her Eloise, and she's found some sort of kinship with this store manager who, didn't beat around the bush. Anyway, fantastic. We'll definitely play some more of this. It's probably going to come out into variety slots, by the way. I've not scheduled this in. It's just something we can play in the variety slots, and that sounds pretty fun to me. Anyway, hope everyone's having a fantastic Halloween. If you are, why not leave me a like, comment, and subscribe? Tell me something spooky in the comment section that you've been up to. Tell me what candy you've got if you've been, out trick-or-treating. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.